Hi, welcome to another session here on the Expanded States of Consciousness World Summit. My name is Fleet Mall, your co-host for this session, and I'm really thrilled and honored to be here today with Dr. Stan Grof and Dr. Brigitte Grof. Welcome to you both.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting us.
Well, we're just so honored to have you both here and be part of the summit. I'm going to share your bio, so to familiarize our audience with your background for those who might not be familiar, and then we'll jump right into the conversation.
Great.
Stanislav Grof, MD, PhD, is a psychiatrist with more than 60 years of experience in research of non-ordinary states of consciousness. In the past, he was Chief of Psychiatric Research at the Maryland Psychiatric Research Center, Assistant Professor of Psychiatry at the Johns Hopkins University in Baltimore, Maryland, and Scholar in Residence at Esalen Institute in Big Sur, California. Currently, he is Professor of Psychology at the California Institute of Integral Studies in San Francisco. In August 2019, his life work encyclopedia, The Way of the Psychonaut, got published, and the documentary film about his life work got released, The Way of the Psychonaut by Stan Grof and the Journey of Consciousness. His website is stangrof.com. Brigitte Grof, PhD, is a psychologist, licensed psychotherapist, and artist with 35 years of experience in holotropic breathwork. She got certified in the first Grof training groups in the USA in Switzerland. She has led breathwork workshops and taught training modules in the USA and in Germany. Currently, she works in her private practice in Wiesbaden, Germany, and leads workshops and retreats. Since April 2016, Stan and Brigitte Grof have been happily married, living in Germany, and conduct seminars, training, and holotropic breathwork workshops worldwide. In May 2020, they launched together their new training work with holotropic states of consciousness known as International Grof Legacy Training. In 2022, Brigitte received an honorary PhD from Ubiquity University of Consciousness for her lifelong work in consciousness and for co-creating the International Grof Legacy Training together with her husband. And her website is brigittegrof.com. Okay, well, again, welcome to you both. It's really an honor to have you here. And I guess really anything that you would like to share to introduce the session, and then we would like to explore kind of how you first developed holotropic breathwork.
Yes, thank you. No, this way I have to start in a particular way. That is about 5 years ago, I had a stroke. There were no problems with my extremities, but it affected my center, speech center. So my problem is these days, I have quite a few languages before, and at this point, I have really problem with speaking, and so it's wonderful that I have Brigitte here. We have now, first of all, we know each other over 38 years, and 7, 8 we've been married. So she knows everything that I would be talking about, and will help me if I have any problem talking. Thank you very much.
Well, we're so appreciative that you're willing to be part of our summit, and we know this will go quite beautifully. So great to have you both. And so I wonder if you could develop. I know, at least from my understanding, you're one of the pioneer, perhaps, in psychedelic assisted psychotherapy and your work with LSD early on, and then at some point when psychedelic drugs were rescheduled as Schedule I drugs in the U.S., and it was all made illegal, and all the kind of research stopped with psychedelic-assisted psychotherapy. I know at Esalen Institute you developed holotropic breathwork. I wonder if you could tell us a bit of that story of how that happened.
Yes, in Baltimore, when I was working with LSD and a couple other substances, I had 2 friends in New York, and who came into this place was Michael Murphy, who created Esalen And we talked, and he says, "So what are you doing these days?" I say, I'm a sabbatica. I decided to create one or two books. And Michael said, "This is exciting. Why don't you come to Esalen? Esalen is a very beautiful place to play." And so we offered that. And so I went to Esalen, and what we did, I changed with them. I had a house there, so I was doing these seminars, and I was talking about what I experienced in Prague with psychedelics and what I experienced in Baltimore. People who were there, were excited about what I was talking about, but they say, "But it's great. They have these wonderful experiences, but we would like to also experience it, not just hear it." And I don't have any stash, in SLN. And I said, "Well, I don't think SLN would like it, so we cannot do that." And then they kept again and again, asking they want some experience. So I think what happened as acting as psychedelics, I should also say that initially, when we had experiences, we never knew how it ends up. Sometimes they're very wonderful, and
the LSD experiences.
LSD, something what happened with Albert Hoffman, who had very, very difficult experiences. But in the end, he has a wonderful, wonderful experience. Then he was reborn, born again, and had the feeling that it's a new time in her life. And so we didn't know. And there were two situations where my patients ended up when it was not great coming down. And the first one was a male, and was coming down from the LSD, and he's very angry, at pain in his shoulder, and very angry. And when I came to him, he said, "I think if you put your thumb into my thumb, if I can push on it, maybe it's going to better." And so I started doing it, pushing as much as I could. And at a certain point, I couldn't even do it. And finally, he started squaring and started screaming, coughing. And we did it for about 20 minutes. And it was just wonderful, wonderful experience that end up, it's relaxed and very sweet, And so this was very wonderful. And then about 2 weeks later, there was my female patient. And again, coming down from the LSD, and really not very good. It was very soft, it's asunated, wanted to pain in a stomach, and throwing up, and or feeling like throwing up. And I came to, and as a doctor, I sort of poke a little on the
belly.
On the belly, and then like a projectile vomiting came
projectile
by my
missing
face,
you barely,
almost into my face. And then we did it twice a time, and again there was a very magically sort of turn the situation in the session. And so I saw that there was something that we could do in order to approve somehow the end of the experience. And so at this point, when these patients were in that situation, there was something unfinished, I would ask what they were experiencing, and then if we can do something to accentuate what was happening.
In the body.
The body, yeah.
Exactly the place where it is, and then how to accentuate.
And then I was doing it, which helped the experience very much. But then happened another thing that as we were doing it, there were again a couple of patients who started spontaneously breathing very fast, without I was asking for it. It's just what we were doing somehow started this very fast breathing, very what Muktananda, Siktananda, is using before meditation. Bastrika, very, very fast breathing. And so I found out at this point that if you are breathing faster, that it can bring the traumatic experiences out of the unconscious, And so then we started doing it. And initially, the patients in SLN were in the circle, and I was using music, which we were using also in Baltimore, with the psychedelics, and but they're breathing and listening to the music, and then there were some of them who were close to the experiences and started spontaneously doing it. And so we started doing this with the body, started helping
at the end.
Whatever was coming up. And there were situations also that the other people in the session, they started breathing spontaneously and going in the process, And then sometimes we had three. It was Christina. He was working with it. I worked with another person, and then it was a third one. The people were looking around and waiting until one of the ended up. So this is what we were doing. And then another thing that happened, that we had a session coming.
A workshop coming, a big workshop.
Yeah. And that time we were already saying that we would be working with breathing. And these were people, coming from all over the world, from South America, from Europe, from Japan, and so on. And at that time point, I was working in our garden, and I threw off my bag, and I was not moved at all. And I couldn't imagine our work is in this situation.
On the floor, in body work, you could not.
And so I say, what are we going to do? We cannot send them home. So we are thinking about it and say, why don't we talk with them, and they get up.
They go up in pairs. They pair up.
Pairing up.
They're pairing up. So.
And so we did it.
So one has the session as a breather, and the other is the sitter, sits next to the person, and then if needed, they can help with the body work.
And this was an amazing situation, because not only people, some experiences, and some of them actually quite intense.
Yeah.
And the others were excited by working with other people. They actually, it's amazing to be there, and involved in a very, very closed process. And they think, we would like to do it myself,
Well, and also for when you're a breather, it's wonderful to have somebody there for you the whole time, unconditionally. And most people have abandonment issues, so this can be very healing that there's somebody there.
Yeah, just love to be in connection with another person, in a very intense kind of experience.
Yes, very intimate.
And so from this time, the time we started doing it this way, in pair up, situations.
It's amazing how the whole process unfolded organically in that way. And
yes,
in the pair process, I can imagine, the part of it where someone gets to serve someone else's process is just really powerful for one's own development, to be able to be a sitter and actually serve somebody else's transformative process.
Well, we don't create it. It was basically from the patients that the ideas working with the breathing and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. And why holotropic? How did you give it the name holotropic? What does that mean for you?
Holotropic is a word which is from two different languages in Greek, and it's called being moving to wholeness. Going to wholeness.
Mm-hmm. So that's generally what holotropic means, but it's also kind of referencing that you are accessing these expanded states or non-ordinary states, allowing things to surface from people's unconscious in ways that could be healing and transformative.
Yes.
Yeah. And so it seems like there's almost a dimension, a healing dimension that you're accessing. I wonder if you could talk about that and maybe the parallels between psychedelic-assisted therapy and holotropic breathwork, that they're both accessing some dimension of being that allows people to heal and release traumas and so forth.
Yes, well, I think what's very typical for breathwork, is that people basically working with their own intelligence.
Healing intelligence. The
inner healing intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
So what's happening with psychiatry is that people are trying to develop some techniques, and each of them is very different. Whereas what's happening in the holotropic breathwork
and in psychedelics
and psychedelics as well, as we work with people, then as is happening, then there are some kind of traumatic experiences or very powerful experiences in the unconscious, and at that point they started coming, breathing into, moving into the surface,
to the surface. Mm-hmm.
So that they automatically sort of came out, and because it's happening, it's some traumatic experience is very close to the surface. So they at the same time, like their symptoms, and so this automatically starts bringing the symptoms,
Yeah, the psyche gets activated either by the psychedelic substance or by the breathwork, by the deep breathing, and then whatever it emerges, whatever is close to the surface. There's like an inner radar or the inner healing intelligence that brings up what is relevant in this moment, in this session, and what needs to be processed. And we don't have a plan what that would be. It's just like creating a safe situation where this activation can happen safely, and then from within these experiences start to emerge, and the symptoms that are there, they come up and they bring up the experiences that are behind the symptom, and then we encourage the full expression of whatever is coming up. Either.
This actually the ideas start with Freud, when Freud worked with dreams, and they said that there are traumatic experiences inside in the unconscious, and when we start sleeping, then it takes away somehow the possibility of start bringing it into the surface, and this would be disturbing. So he talked about that
they come as dreams.
What happens? The dreams, happen by you cannot experience the full unconsciousness, And Freud was working with the memories. Actually, at one point he was in a train with some other people, a person who was going with him, and told him about a dream that he had 20 years ago, and Freud immediately entered the dream,
interpreted,
without any basically from his ideas. And then when it comes to Jung didn't want to do it from memory, and when his patients came, they have to lie down in a couch, and he want them to continue with the dream, so that he sees all as it was all coming into.
But there was not old dreams; that were recent dreams. It was actual.
So for then, when we were doing something similar, and we're also breathing, that
intensifies the symptoms.
And then of course, when we would on top of we would get psychedelics, then it's very easy then to take out the problematic experiences that are close to the surface,
to bring it out. Bring it into it comes into the consciousness, and also in the body, including physical traumas that are usually not included in psychology.
So I'd like to explore further this idea of inner healing intelligence. That seems to be a really important part of this work. And rather than the facilitator or the therapist really guiding the work, it's more you're creating a safe space, and there is something giving them access, whether it's the psychedelic substance or whether it's the breath work, the intense breath breathing. But then you're really letting the person's own inner healing intelligence guide the process rather than it being guided by the therapist. And I would imagine over time that that's much more empowering for the person or the patient, because
exactly,
they may just feel like it's coming from nowhere, but if they begin to get the sense that there is this inner healing intelligence that they can trust, I would think that's very empowering.
If the therapist would do something, then would at least think that it's by the psychiatrist,
by the therapist.
He helps the problems. But this way, people do it themselves, so it's very empowering in a sense.
Well, it's a knowledge. We in the Western culture, we live a lot in the head, and we think this is the only source of knowledge, but it's not true. There is another source of knowledge within us, the intuition or the inner healing intelligence, that we need to learn to connect and to listen to and to follow. So that's for us, for the Western culture, a new approach. But actually, in the East, in the old traditions, it's been known. Like for instance, the Kundalini in India, Kundalini process is, this is the divine energy that is actively going through the body and transforming it to the last spiritual truth. So this is very, very known, and it's actually there's some similarities you can observe in the breath work and in psychedelic sessions that people have, similar experiences. Like they have these body things like a shaking or body postures that's called kriyas, and they have strong emotions, and they have a death rebirth, spiritual death rebirth process, which is very, very powerful. So that can be compared in a way, and as you say, it's very empowering that we do have this inner wisdom within us. We just need to listen, and not the therapist is not the authority, so we're just like midwives or helpers for something that wants to get born from within each person.
Usually the patients sometimes have the idea of what they should do to need to be resolved.
Yes.
And also the psychologist frequently had the idea what should happen to the patients. And we find out that really, if the psyche allowed to bring it out, you find the best resolution of that. Sometimes people trying to work on it, but they thought that would come, and then the resolution come from something completely different.
Yeah. Well, it's not only a healing intelligence, it's also very creative energy and power, because there's experiences that are coming we could not even imagine from our heads that they would come. So it's really good to get the concepts and ideas out of the way, and kind of trying to let go of the idea of mental control, because the real creative force coming from the divine source, and it's spontaneous and it's free. It's, you know, so this is a very liberating and freedom-loving kind of energy. Very, very creative and beautiful.
You know, at a point we started using a larger group.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes very large, like the big one was in Moscow, was 450
people,
with about 70 facilitators.
Mm.
So anyway, then we do all kinds of things around them, and they look and they believe that we have some kind of a list of techniques, you know, that we do. And actually, what is happening, there's only one principle, which is that what is trying to coming up,
mm-hmm.
We accentuate
support
it. So,
that. Mm-hmm.
And of course, we do it several times. Things. This is when some of the things are happening again. You know, certain areas in the body and so on. Then it's some base way of help it or
supporting it.
Yeah. So, but the principle is that we just look at the what is trying to happen and just do something to help it, you know, and, including the body work and
because it was an interesting conversation we had that actually the pause in the forced pause in the psychedelic research was not only bad on the retrospective, because the development of the holotropic breathwork, or Grof breathwork as we call it now as well, has actually brought to the people the understanding that this energy comes from within. Because if you do psychedelics, you can still kind of say, oh, it was the drug who did it, you know, and you know, without it, I could not access this. But from a little bit of breathing, you cannot, you know, it's clear it's you. So this has been really very helpful for people to accept that this is an inner process that everybody can access. And in that regard, it was not only a loss, it was also a gain. And now we are coming back to the psychedelic renaissance, and we have the breathwork as well in the package. It's very, very good, because not everybody wants to do psychedelics, and that's the breathwork is a really valuable tool, and also for training to work with psychedelic states, it's really a valuable tool. We'll talk about that later.
Yeah, I would imagine, and I would like to explore the integration of the two at some point. But first, I'd still like to explore a little bit this idea of inner healing intelligence. So in terms of what your experience with the people doing your programs, your patients, and so forth. So I imagine someone could just experience this as kind of a sort of intuition, or others, it's kind of, sometimes we talk about the body has a kind of intelligence, somatic intelligence. And then some people I know experience almost like they get in touch, well, it could be a sense of higher self. And you mentioned in the Kundalini tradition and the Vedic traditions, you have the idea of the Ishtadevata, which is a kind of higher self, higher consciousness, or in Tibetan Buddhism, Tantra, you have the idea of the Yidam. But some people almost experience like they're connecting with another entity or something. It could be angelic forces, angels. It could be the idea of allies. And I wonder if you could explore how some people kind of experience this in these different ways, and almost like they're really connecting some higher being, which I suppose ultimately it's best if they experience that really is still them, but they really do have these experiences from what I hear.
Yes, there's a situation that happened with Jung. For him appeared
a guide, like a spirit guide, yeah.
Guide, Philemon, who was able to ask questions.
To answer
questions. You know, Jung was asking questions, and Philemon was answering. And this was thing that Jung had no idea what it was. And at a certain point, actually, the experiences that came ghosts, you know, into his house, and
Okay.
That was some of the most interesting thing that he wrote.
He completed an essay that was larger published at Septem Sermones ad Mortuos, 7 Sermons to the Dead.
That's the one, yeah.
Arguably the most fascinating book he ever wrote. It's a text outlining the basic tenets of the Gnostic traditions, and it was signed by the Alexandrian Gnostic philosopher Basilides.
Yeah.
The forceful automatic writing released Jung from his severe writer's block for 3 years before his episode. He had not been able to write anything. The Way of the Psychonaut, Volume 2, page 134.
Okay. So Jung was channeling kind of a higher intelligence of some kind. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the same was like with this, I think Helen Schuckman, with the Course in Miracles.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
She was channeling that one. So this is what we call the higher creativity. That's a concept. It was actually very much described in a book by Willis Harman.
Mm-hmm.
And he's explaining what happens with people who are geniuses, and you cannot explain that by only the biographical level. I mean, you have to have the extended level of the psyche, especially the transpersonal level, that people do access sources of creativity and information that are beyond the materialistic worldview. And then they get inspirations from there. And it's, people describe that, like musicians would describe that they would just hear the music inside and just write it down, the hand was writing down what they were hearing, things like that. So this is really what's higher creativity, or you get insights like the Ouroboros.
Yeah.
That was Kekule, yeah?
Yeah.
He was getting the insights about the benzo ring in a vision, And so people get these insights from visions, from trance states, or from holotropic states of consciousness. They cannot get these informations from sitting down and on the desk and thinking about it,
In the process of integration with holotropic breath work or the Grof breath work, you employ various sorts of creativity, right? Journaling and art, visual art, and so forth. I wonder if you could talk a bit about the importance of integration coming out of these sessions, and both in terms of a session maybe that goes very well, but the person, in order to develop greater understanding from what they've experienced, you use various creative processes. But then also, I would imagine sometimes sessions can become somewhat destabilizing, and a person needs to have some kind of integration process.
First, the best thing is to really good resolution during the session.
Good resolution for the day and the body work that Stan described is really the most important tool. So what we do at the end of the session, we check with every person listen to their story, but what is happening in the body, because the body knows. Is there any area of tension, pain, or discomfort? And then we would work with them by asking them to intensify, we don't massage it away, we make it worse, because we want to bring out what's under the symptom, and we would ask them to intensify, to tense up that area, and we would give them a counter pressure that's meeting them, and then encourage them to express whatever comes up, not just say like scream, but allow express anything that wants to come. And that could be anything from, anger, joy, laughter, screaming, throwing up, or funny sounds like animal sounds or gibberish, or they could have like energy release phenomena, birth experiences, or whatever, anything. The importance is that you allow anything that wants to happen without having any mental barriers, So, and that when we encourage the full expression of that energy, and then it would be released and integrated. So that's the main and most important integration we do. That's really, really, really important, Yeah. And also
it's like the homeopathy,
Yes.
There you actually try to, when there's a problem, you try to intensify that.
Yes.
exactly what many psychiatrists do. They try to suppress,
yes,
whereas you want to intensify
yes,
and bring it out.
Well, Stan has this wonderful story, which I love. It's like dealing with symptoms, If you want to suppress a symptom, it's not very healthy. It's like when you're driving in a car and there is a lamp, goes red, and something's wrong in the car, then you just try to extinguish the lamp, but you don't see that's when you suppress a symptom, it doesn't help because the symptom is actually a healing attempt.
And you find out that the person was running out.
Running out of gas.
Gas.
Yeah, that's a great analogy.
It's a good one, isn't it? I love it. And so we intensify the symptom and encourage the full expression of what's behind, and that's the best integration you can have. But also, we live in a culture where everything is really rapid and you want to be functional quickly and all this. So it's very important if you take an inner journey that you take time off after for allowing yourself to stay in that state, in that other kind of state, not having to function and having time to paint your experience, to write it down and relax, have time in nature, and just take time to dream a little more, to stay in that state. So we recommend to have the next day off and just do things that are good.
So it's important, the resolution, very good do in the session already.
Yes.
But there are all kinds of things that can be done afterwards. So we have a whole list of things. They always something that bring in the same direction, not something that's suppressing it, not.
Well, and also it's important what company you choose. If you had a great experience, it's not a good idea to go home and try to convince people that have no idea about this. That it would be great to do. So it's better to stay with people who understand where you have been and can support that. And
usually people who come from an experience, they can have very wild kind of experiences. And we tell them, they wait before they start talking other people, because people would not understand what happened.
Well, and sometimes the transition from that state or from that group to the everyday life can be a bit of a challenge. I call it transpersonal jet lag. When you're in the expanded state, and then you come home and there are all these bills you have to pay, and you have the conflict with your neighbor or something like that.
I don't know if you should say a few of those things that would help. Even, for example, if an open up, a lot of energy, even do afterward do swimming, for example, with a lot of movement,
or running,
jogging,
in nature, being in nature.
Wonderful is bring the music and dance very wild,
Well, or if you're very quiet, you just take your quiet time.
We also, as people, mandalas during the session. But many people like to continue the mandalas afterwards, and also helps the integrate. It is talking about what happened in this, and can talk with.
People, you can, if it's a workshop, they can exchange the phone number also with their sitters or other people from the group, and then speak about the experiences later. And what I really like is I have kind of a big kind of book with blank pages, and I write my experiences with the date, and I make little drawings in there. So it becomes a diary over the years even, and it's very powerful to see that sometimes some motives have already started and how they continue. It's just really great to see development in this kind of documentation. We really recommend that.
So this idea of not suppressing, this seems to be really key, just like the idea of the inner guiding intelligence. And it seems like the work requires some courage, because instinctually, we often want to suppress things that are difficult, right? We want to avoid them. And so you're asking people to feel them and go into them and even accentuate them and make them bigger. So there's really some courage in the process, both for the participant and for the facilitators and sitters and so forth. That seems remarkable. That it's a very courageous process.
I think it's very important that people who would be working with other people, they have to these experiences themselves. They see how it helps when they were allowed to have powerful experiences, you know.
Well, one thing that you definitely need is what Stan has been describing in his books, especially now in The Way of the Psychonaut Encyclopedia. You have to have an understanding of the maps where you can go, where the experience can take you, like the perinatal level, the transpersonal level, and the energies that can happen there. So one is the mental, the knowledge, and the other is the experiential knowledge. You have to be, had the experiences of these states and of this content, and then also you have to be used to sit with people who have these experiences. That's why we think the holotropic breathwork, the Grof breathwork, is a very valuable tool. In the beginning, when you come to these groups, I thought this was like a madhouse, but I instantly liked it. So, but now I'm just so you get so used to these states, that it's just normal, and knowing that this is so healing. The people sometimes say, well, how can you stand it, all this screaming and so, and I say, well, this is music in my ears, because the real suffering is often very silent. So when the expression, the word shows it, you are expressing it, it's already leaving your system. So it's liberating and healing to have to express these feelings and integrate them that way.
In SLN, it was possible when people, psychiatrists, psychologists, have sessions in SLN, they can get they need to do about 200
hours,
and they were able to use it in SLN for this. And so many were very excited, to go and do it in a beautiful place and in SLN by the ocean, and so on. And then they came and they started the breath work, and they couldn't believe that what was happening. They come to me and say, listen, do you have some
volume or
something,
medication or plastic bag over the head?
I didn't believe that these people who would go so far that would, another 2 hours later, they are fine and talk.
They have dinner.
They would be, for and ended up in a psychiatry,
For me, I was very fortunate to get to know this work when I studied psychology, and I didn't have any practical training except the breath work, the holotropic breath work with Stan and Christina, and that was, for me, it just got so normal, I was just, and so actually when I did the training group, the German speaking, I was the youngest participant, and the others were all settled therapists, and they had it was so much harder for them to allow it and to trust it. I was just like, for me, it was natural, it was just normal. So it's a really matter of understanding, and our culture or many of these phenomena are seen as dangerous, or even discussions about hyperventilation, how dangerous this is. And I was just lately reading that actually the Western culture is the only culture that separates the physiological breathing, meaning of breathing, from the spiritual. I mean, this is a spiritual process, breathing, and we just see it as something physical. And if people start breathing faster, it scares the science, Jesus, this is dangerous, instead of knowing, oh, all right, there can be faster breathing and can be experiences with it that are very, very good,
You should also say, Brigitte, that I couldn't go to Prague because of the communists there, and you and a friend of
yes,
Alexandra, we brought them to Prague, and
they wanted to have a workshop with holotropic breathwork, and Stan couldn't go there, so he sent me and a friend, and we went to see his mother, Maria, and she had a group of people, and there was it had to be secret.
She started doing it herself.
Yeah, she started giving breathwork sessions, and so we went to the countryside to a farm and did the first holotropic breathwork workshop in the Czech Republic.
And also bringing some psychiatrists and psychologists. Yeah.
And it was it was amazing. There were some psychiatrists, and they got so scared, like, oh my God, what's happening there? It's always like this when trained professionals of that area come, and then very quickly they will see that it's super beneficial. They experience themselves, and also they see the people doing all these things in the group, and then they sit in the sharing, and they are feeling great, and they are talking about their experiences. So it's very good learning.
And those people who were there, then quite a few of them came back to
later
when
it opened.
Became facilitated themselves, very excited about it,
Yes.
Maybe we could talk a little bit about your current work. I know that Grof Legacy Training, now you're training both breathwork facilitators and people to facilitate psychedelic assisted psychotherapy. And it seems like that the breathwork training would be very good training for someone who's also going to be a facilitator of psychedelic assisted psychotherapy. And I'm also wondering how, with particular individuals and patients, how maybe one might be more indicated for another, but maybe the two integrated somehow in their overall journey. So I wonder what's happening now with your current work of bringing these two together in some way now that the psychedelic assisted therapy is becoming available again.
For some time I was working for GPT and
Grof transpersonal training.
Yeah, initially, and now for about 8 or 9 years I've stepped up of it. I am not working anymore.
Stepped out.
And we created this Grof.
The new training, the Grof Legacy Training International. And there we have authorized good teachers in the countries to do their own trainings under our supervision. And
this is doing for all over the world. Yeah.
It's all over the world. And we have some psychedelic trainings going, for instance, in Spain and in Canada, and also in northern countries. And people are learning first. They do holotropic breathwork experiences to get used to the how it works, how the process works, the inner healing intelligence, the body work, and so on. And also sit for each other and have experiences in the group, see everybody before they start working with psychedelics. The psychedelics which are legally usable in the country.
For example, now it's coming to Canada. People may be able to do breath work as well as
yes, but the breath work is first of all a preparation and a training how to sit for psychedelics, because if you can sit for breath work and you learn how to deal with these phenomena that happen and you experience it yourself, the step for the psychedelics is not big, because essentially the same things happen in the psychedelic work. It's just a little bit different unfolding depending on the substance you're using. So they also get experiences with different substances to feel what would be the different tone of the session. But the experiences that come up are the same.
Also, what we were saying, very keen with the psyche,
the inner healing intelligence.
Inner healing is
the same.
Exactly that.
And the same, the body work would be the same if needed. The support that
where there cannot be this. People can have psychedelics. They can use with the breath work be able to sit with people.
Yes.
Until they are able to have experiences themselves.
And also sometimes they also combine these things. People, they would have a psychedelic session and then have a breathwork session a couple of days later. So something that would not be completed in the even with body work and everything could be worked and integrated in the breathwork after. It's also possible.
Now there's a new, you should say, there is a new book, the edition from, I'm talking about breath work, you know.
Well, yeah, we just brought out a new edition of the book Holotropic Breathwork,
and
the
it
second
has
edition.
We edit this 10 chapter.
Chapter 10.
That's help people to bring from breath work into psychedelic. Yeah.
Yeah, it includes the history of holotropic breathwork and also the role of Grof breathwork in the psychedelic renaissance. It's really very interesting.
It's such an incredible gift to the world, your work, and so wonderful that it's continuing in this way. I wanted to ask a question about the healing potential of expanded states altogether, not ordinary states and expanded states of consciousness. Mm-hmm. So as you've been speaking, there is a quality of allowing traumas and to come closer to the surface where they can be worked with, and then you can accentuate those and they can be released. So there's some kind of release and healing, cathartic quality to that. At the same time, is there something about being in an expanded state of consciousness, of actually experiencing an expanded state of consciousness that is in of itself transformative, that transforms our consciousness or gives us a different context from which to live our life or understand our life even?
Mm-hmm. Well, what's very interesting that people who come for a larger series of the sessions, you know, in training, for example, or even to become if do larger series, and of course with good setting and so on, the light kind of circumstances, you see that they develop a certain kind of personality, you know. For example, the view, seeing the worldview, the whole worldview comes.
They become, you know, without teaching them, they become more peaceful. They become more like global citizens, considering about nature and feeling that everything is connected, and
feel very much like what astronauts experience when they saw the world, you know,
like Rusty Schweikart,
you know, they couldn't believe what is happening. These planets up to which we fight with each other, kill with each other, and we really this is just one. This is you know.
Yeah, it's one planet.
That's a planet.
It's one world.
And also see that it's very important that we have to really a problem with water and air and soil. You know, this is the most important thing that we we need. You know, because this is what we live on. Yeah. And you couldn't understand that we destroyed, you know, these kinds of sources, you know, and this automatically came from people who have resolved some of the major personal problems, you know. Suddenly start seeing like this the world.
And spirituality that is perennial,
that's important that. There's a spirituality that comes, which is very different from religion,
organized religion.
That same problems with each other, you know. Whereas the spirituality that comes out of the place is more like what you find in mystical chances. Universal, you know, universal.
Yeah.
So, yes, people often report profound experiences of interconnectedness and feeling connected to a greater whole, greater dimension. And they also speak about, the first time I heard this, I thought it was the term biophilia. I thought it sounded like some kind of disorder, but evidently it means being in love with nature. And so people often reconnect with the natural world in profound ways, as you're describing.
Yeah.
Well, the indigenous people who do regular inner journeys, they experience nature as spirited. I mean, there's a spirit everywhere in nature, and we, again, in the Western culture, we have cut it away from the material world. And that's, I mean, if you know that everything's breathing and spirit, you would not, or alive in a way, you wouldn't want to destroy it, you know.
Also cannot see, you know, that the possibility that violence is not a possibility of resolved problems, you know. As violence, this is not accepted.
So Stan, maybe as a final question, I just really so appreciate this very illuminating conversation, and it's such an honor to be able to have this conversation with you. I'm curious, you know, with the many decades of your work and your research with psychedelics and holotropic breath work, the journey you've been on personally, sort of where has that left you today in terms of your understanding of self, your understanding of consciousness, your understanding of our human journey and why we're here, what it's all about? I'm wondering if you'd have anything you'd like to offer in that regard.
Well, I see that Brigitte has a booklet here, which is a new one. You see, when I worked for over 60 years with psychedelics and other substances, of course, things were changes, you know, changes. And I gave it in the books. And so some of the things changes. And when my 50th, 90th anniversary, you know, Brigitte was thinking that I have never really looked where I end up at the end.
How you started, where you started.
How it did
changed over the years, over the 60 years of your research. Yeah.
Yeah, and so we worked on it.
We did an interview. I did an interview with you about it. Yes.
And then she had the idea of making it a book, you know, but she was doing it secretly, you know.
Secretly.
There are two things. The first one is the development of LSD, how it was very excited, and then was not allowed, you know, and then coming again is because of Rick Dublin and so on, and actually bringing all the way towards archetypes and psychiatry.
But in the interview, Stan is describing that he actually, in the beginning, he thought it was like pharmacology. I mean, they got this substance and they had no idea what it was. So starting with it, they were actually measuring people all the time in the sessions, you know, with like taking blood and EEG and or whatever. It was pretty terrible.
People believed, we all believed that the secret is in LSD, is in
pharmacology,
in chemistry and biology. And then when we started doing it in a laboratory and so on, I had the sense that all the people that we worked with, in the very same kind of substances and the same doses and so on, they had a completely different experiences.
That's a picture of the pharmacology. This is Stan being in a session, being measured all the time. Looks a bit like torture chamber.
And then also, if we had this, let's say LSD today, and then 2 weeks later, the experience can be completely different. And so I realized that this was not really pharmacology, that this we are talking about the psyche, and I then go back to my patients, you know, to
clinical work,
and first starting with medium dosages, and then going to the higher dosages, and I saw how to go one step after another,
You discovered the perinatal level,
one of my patients called this about the
peeling the onion,
peeling, so that I could see where these issues were on these different levels, and also at what point the connection was with different problems.
The coexistence we discovered.
And then as we finally came to birth. Which until today, psychiatrists, psychologists, mostly of them don't believe that it's possible that you have in your psyche that you have
memory of birth. But it's not only memory of physical birth; it's also a spiritual death and rebirth process. It's much more than just memory of birth.
You see, and so death was happening then. Going back after stop one after another. And something new, excited came, but then we find out that it's not it, and going beyond. So I started to have the feeling that it was like
But you said it was like a treasure hunt.
Like a treasure hunt, you know.
Always finding some new clues, and then you have to go to another place, and then you found the transpersonal level experiences,
from archetypes. So
and then eventually he came to the archetypes. That's where he is now, and he says basically now he realizes that the archetypal level is influencing everything. It's
So anyway, so in the book or booklet, I would say, is that one part is the work with LSD that came from the chemistry and all the way to archetypes, and the other one was the story of LSD itself.
It's the foreword that you wrote for Albert.
They call Wonder Child. LSD was Wonder Child of Albert, and then become a problem child, and then again came thanks to Rick Doblin, that came this amazing situation.
Renaissance,
psychedelics now they're all over the world now. Now the problem is now to find that enough people would learn how to do it. Because we had 40 years, when people were not asked to work with psychedelics.
That's really important that people get properly trained to be psychedelic sitters or therapists.
So those are two aspects in the book, and then Brigitte came, wonderful friends of mine who sort of worked with me and with them for all these years. So it's a wonderful book of photographs of these people
and birthday wishes,
giving letters, for the 90th anniversary.
So I would imagine that our audience can find all of these books if they go to stangroff.com. They can basically find out about all your wonderful books. And
but they're available on Amazon, The Way of the Psychonaut. And maybe I sent you the whole list of information.
Yes.
Maybe you want to share that with people. That would be great.
We definitely will be making that available.
So there is this new of the cycle of breathwork, this is a new book
edition. And
then the second would be the Psychonaut, of course.
Well, I have to say something. The Psychonaut is one book in 2 volumes. Many people buy the first volume and they miss the second, which is even more interesting. So it's really one book in 2 volumes.
Actually, to a surprise, it just came for Russia, translation of Psychonaut, but they put it in 2 of them.
Put it in one book. They put it in one book. That's actually better. It makes a big book, but then it's together because it's really all of Stan's knowledge. And so, Fleet, you were saying, it takes so much courage to do this. And imagine the courage it took for Stan. He had no idea what this was, and the people had all these reactions. They were really felt like they were actually dying or going crazy. And we are so fortunate that we have, Stan's work, who's explained so much that we can go by that map. So one day I said to Stan, well, how did you find the courage to go for this and to continue? I mean, how did you find that courage? And he said, I was just so curious.
It's amazing.
It was amazing, because we were with the patients and we ourselves, of course. And every session was a new excitement. We never knew what was going to come. What we knew that LSD is not anywhere in the nature. There's something closer to it, but there's really no, as far as in LSD in nature. So it was really completely new, and so every session was very exciting.
Well, thank goodness for your curiosity and your courage, because we've all been the beneficiaries of that. And thank you so much for being part of our Expanded States of Consciousness Global Summit, and for your work, and just really wishing the best for the continuation of your work and your current health and prosperity. So thank you so much for being part of the summit. This has been really enriching. Any final words you'd like to offer?
I really, really believe if this continues will be good. I think it can even help somehow change the situation in the world.
Yes.
That people would be really
they could
change in the direction in which all help us.
It's really important to go inward, and
there's also of course the healing of it's quite amazing that many things in which other substances cannot be helping. Some of the psychedelics are helping,
and the breath.
But there is this other thing. It's quite amazing that it could really change the world if people are doing it.
Absolutely. I think back in the 60s, many of us had that hope and aspiration that there was going to be this huge collective awakening, and it didn't quite happen then. But it does seem even more hopeful that it could happen now. And so much of that has to do with your wonderful contributions.
Well, I think the problem in the 1960s, it was a political thing that was against the psychedelics. What is happening now is that they are really very good result of healing. So, including helping people, veterans, people who nothing can be helped, and it's a major problem. So it's really very likely that it's going to stay for a while,
Yeah,
it's kind of amazing that the psychedelics come into back to the society through the army.
Yeah, it is. It is kind of amazing. Well, I think that was very intelligent of Rick Doblin and others to include veterans in the studies, and it's wonderful the results that are being had. And it does seem like the genie is really out of the bottle this time, and hopefully it'll stay out for all of our benefits.
We think it's so important that psychedelics are dealt with care, with expertise, with great ethics and with great knowledge, and just really with care. It's a powerful instrument, and the other indigenous people have trained shamans, and so we really have to train people very well who are handling these substances.
Absolutely.
I think what's amazing in Denver,
in Denver at the MAPS conference,
this is going to be wild, and actually it was wonderful conference, and
the MAPS conference.
Nothing wild, and then
no, it was decent people.
No, it was quite amazing.
15,000 people, the only problem was the virus.
Yeah, no. We survived it.
Yeah. So thank you both so much. Thank you so much. And wishing you both the best, and thank you for being part of this summit. Just really an honor for us to have you be part of it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Phil. Thank you so
much. I really
much.
encourage people to hear this message of how important it is for us to get trained in how to work with these substances, as well as working with tools like holotropic breath work, and encourage people to check out the Grof Legacy training as a resource for getting that kind of training. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.